Well, hello everybody. How are you doing today? I certainly hope that each and every one of you are doing just fine. I tell you, it really feels good to be able to join you once again. I tell you, it is always such a pleasure to be with you. And so first, I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for tuning in today to this episode of TJ's Topics. I tell you, I really do appreciate you being here. And I would like to welcome you, one and all, not only to this episode of TJ's Topics, but I would also like to welcome you to a brand new month, the month of August. I tell you, can you believe it? We are already in the month of August, the 8th month of the year. Oh man. And of course, this month is it's going to be a big month for a lot of people because school is getting ready to start, and I tell you, these teachers, they got to get ready to deal with these kids again. They've had a little break this summer, but now it's time to get back in the classroom. And oh man, and it's time for the kids to get out the house and head back to school. So if you're one of those students or teachers who is getting ready to head back to school, I want to extend my sincerest and best wishes to each and every one of you. And as for me, I've been in school year round because working in maintenance and stuff, we work all year long. So we have little breaks here and there, but but we're essential workers, so they have to keep us around. But this year is starting my 18th year in school, in the school district. I tell you, so I'm gonna try my best to make it through this 18th year and do it with style and grace. Now, today I want to share a topic with you, and I think it's one that many of you out there may be able to resonate with, or may resonate with you. And, I often think about how, you know, just looking at all the things that are going on now, it's like, and when you think about the administration we have, I tell you, I never thought that I would live to see anything like this. I really didn't. But here we are, right here. And of course, we've heard Trump say many times that he really loves the uneducated, people who don't know anything, because when you're uneducated and you're ignorant to things, you don't question what's being offered to you. Neither do you challenge the things that are being taught and the propaganda that's being distributed. You don't go against it because you simply don't know anything as it is. Well, that's what I want to talk about briefly today. There is no excuse for ignorance in the 21st century. That is the point that I want to make today with this topic. There is no excuse for ignorance in the 21st century. And really, it's not. When you consider all of the resources that we have, I'm talking about online resources, printed resources, Audible, and you name it. I mean, all types of resources that we can tap into, information that we can look up, and I mean, at the click of a button, our fingertips, we're walking around with information daily on our phones and whatnot. With all of that available to us, why is it that there are so many people out here who are still ignorant, still don't know anything? You know, when you think back to the time of slavery and, and even upon the founding of this country, or when the pilgrims first came over here in the 1600s, 1600s. When you think about all that back in those years and those centuries, most of them couldn't help to be ignorant because there was little to no information of any kind available back then. But now, in the year 2025, with all this technology, all of these resources, all this information available to us, most of which is free of charge, by the way, don't have to spend a dime on it. Why is it that so many people still feel like it's wrong to tap into it? Now, I'm going to give you an example. And it seems like I always have to resort to this type of example when we're talking about ignorance and people not knowing anything. But just think about in church, think about the realm of religion, particularly Christianity. And I know that's not the only religion there is that seems to gravitate towards ignorance, but it's like the dominant religion, especially in these United States. It seems like when it comes to the majority of Christians in this country, and basically around the world for that matter, but I'm going to focus on the United States right now. It seems like there are so many people who seem to find joy and peace and contentment in their state of ignorance. Most Christians don't read anything. They don't read the Bible. They just go on what the preacher says. They just, whatever he says, they believe it. But they don't question what they're being taught, what's being preached to them. They don't challenge it. They just take it at face value and run with it. They'll take one Bible verse, most times out of context, and they'll build an entire doctrine on it. And we see many instances where that has happened. And I'm going to give you one right quick. In Luke chapter 6, verse 38, it says, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again." Now, if you go to the average church in this country, if the pastor stands up in the pulpit and quotes that verse, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be quoted around the time when they're getting ready to raise the offering. And they'll use that carefully selected verse and a few others that they have carefully selected in order to convince the people and ultimately coerce them into giving. But upon doing my own research years ago, I discovered that passage in Luke chapter 6, verse 38 is in no way connected to finances. It does not pertain to people dropping coins or dollars in a collection plate. In order to know what Luke chapter 6, verse 38 is talking about, you cannot start at Luke 6, verse 38 and read it thinking that you're going to know the context of it. You got to go back and read the beginning of that chapter, starting at verse 1, and read all the way down to verse 38 and following. Then you'll get the proper context of that one verse. But that's not something that is taught in church. Christianity doesn't really promote thinking and you know going above and beyond what they offer you in the church on Sunday morning. That's something that people have to be willing to do for themselves. So the context of Luke chapter 6, verse 38 is not money, but it is rather how we treat our fellow man, how we deal with each other out here on a daily basis, being kind to one another, you know, showing gratitude and generosity, love and thoughtfulness and respect towards one another. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the context of Luke chapter 6, verse 38. You have to read the entire chapter in order to know what it's talking about. And there are a number of other verses that if I had time, I would go into, and I probably will at a later date. But right now, I'm just going to focus on the overall concept of ignorance, which is not limited to religion or Christianity, but it's across the board, from a political perspective. And look here, I could be talking all day long about politics and as it pertains to ignorance. That's how we ended up with Trump 2.0. Now, you would think after January 6th, people would have learned something. You would think after 2016, in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, people would have learned their lesson. But, I think it was Frederick Douglass who said that if a people don't know their history, they're doomed to repeat it. Apparently, the American people have forgotten their history, as it pertains to the Trump administration 1.0. And that's how we ended up with the Trump administration 2.0, because the American people walking around in a state of ignorance, falling for lies and misconceptions. And I'm telling you, all of the bluff, the bluffing. I tell you, it is absolutely ridiculous. So, and I think about all of the things that are available to us now in terms of information and technology that were not available to us 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, humanity ought to be so far advanced now than it is. But I feel like there are a number of things that have held us back. Religion probably being one of them. And then there are multiple others as well. But it all stems back to ignorance. And for some people, ignorance is bliss. They feel good walking around in their ignorance, because ignorance allows people to get away with a lot of things that they wouldn't get away with if they had knowledge. Because with knowledge comes accountability and responsibility. And that's something that most people tend to shy away from, because they want to just dance through life all willy-nilly without being held responsible for any of their mistakes or shortcomings. So it is what it is. So again, ladies and gentlemen, there is no excuse for ignorance in the 21st century. And you tell me this, do you take pride in your ignorance if you're one of those individuals? Or do you know someone who takes pride in their ignorance? Because if you know someone who does, then apparently they feel good about it. But hopefully it's not you who take pride in ignorance. Because if you do, then all I can say is shame on you. So this concludes this discussion today on ignorance. And I would like to say a very heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to this episode of TJ's Topics. I really appreciate you being here. I consider it a joy, an honor, and a privilege to be able to come into your presence on any given occasion. And I look forward to seeing you again next time, okay? We'll have something else good to talk about. Who knows? Maybe talking about religion once again. Ain't no telling. But we're grown, so we can talk about whatever the hell we want. This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding you that every round goes higher and higher. Look forward to seeing you again. Enjoy this month of August and try to stay cool. Bye-bye.